Our focus tonight on Plus TV Africa's politics today. Now, President of the Senate and the EFCC are in a running battle. Also, we'll be looking at how viable are the states in Nigeria. Should we merge the states together or pack it all in one? Well, this is Plus Politics, and I'm David Alabi. Now, Dr. Bukola Saraki may be the president of the Senate right now, but the EFCC has seized some of his properties, saying he has a case to answer with the agency. Well, joining me today, I have Steve Agiode, legal practitioner of the Rules and Ethics Director, Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network. Good to have you join us, Steve. And we also have Segun Sokpita as well. We are having him as well, the chairman of the BOT. That's the Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you. Now, let's start with this story. Once again, we have this call from the President of the Senate saying that the attacks we've seen so far with respect to the seizures of his properties in Ikoyi here in Lagos, he's described it as this act of the EFCC as mischievous and aimed at settling scores. But let's take a flashback to the earlier arraignments that these same properties with the same addresses raised. The cases started at the CCT and found their way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court adjudicated and made its pronouncement, and the matter seemed clear. So the question now is this: why is it reopened? Steve?
Well, I think let's even start with the perspective on what happened. First of all, the EFCC actually has a right to seize properties where they deem that properties are the produce of crime and all that. They do have that power under Section 26 of the EFCC Act, and under Section 27, they are empowered to go to court to seek an interim order for forfeiture of the properties wherever they have enough evidence. So, on the surface of it, EFCC has the basic power to do what they have done. Now, what is on ground now is a factual dispute as to what are the facts of the case at the CCT. Did they include the properties in question? So these are the issues that will now arise. It's something that will be contested in court because we've heard from Saraki now. We cannot say for sure that the facts is stating are right, because EFCC must have a reason for having taken him there in the first place. So these things will play out in court, but at a basic level, the EFCC has a right to seize properties.
And Shagun, now this isn't unrelated to the fact that there are investigations ongoing as to certain allegations of misappropriation of funds during his tenure as governor from 2003 up to 2011. Now, but if we look at these properties, now we are making reference to 15A, 15B, and 17 MacDonald Road, Ikoyi. And these properties were acquired under the Presidential Implementation Committee for Sales and Government Property through Shelves companies. Then they would have done the due diligence, wouldn't you say, to ask questions as to where these funds are coming from, especially knowing his track record, don't you think?
Well, I mean, we must remember that the Senate President is also a private individual. And one can argue that prior to becoming the governor of Kwara State, so the argument from his supporters would be that he was wealthy. To a certain degree. Whether he had enough means or resources to be able to afford a couple of billions in properties as at that time remains a question to be answered, and now the FCC is beaming a searchlight to answer that question. But on the face of it, he's a private individual. he has a right to seek to invest in properties that are available. For me, the question that I must ask is why there's too much playing to the gallery, as far as I'm concerned. So Saraki says, why has a case that has been
dealt with
decided up until Supreme Court level suddenly been taken up again by the EFCC? The question I would be asking is not that question, because like he said, the EFCC has a right to say. We must remember that the CCT was trying a declaration issue, not necessarily whether or not the funds were legally acquired or not. It's just that he failed to declare. It's a completely different thing from what the EFCC is interested in. They are trying to determine, did you acquire? Yes. Is it process of crime or not? So there are two different things. But for me, the question is, why do we do these things on the pages of the newspapers? Well, how come the EFCC has decided, for instance, to go and mark the building, and then the spokesperson of the EFCC is saying, sorry, I'm not aware of that. There seems to be a lot of shoddiness in the manner of approach of some of these agencies, and this might not be unrelated to why, for instance, they failed to get a conviction at the CCT. Because if you look at I'm not a lawyer, but just reading the case as at that time, it looked to me as if it was cast in iron.
You made mention of the fact of some shoddiness, and we are not having communication done properly. And from an anonymous relative as well, they said part of the property that was marked is not necessarily that of the President of the Senate. So we've always had this issue of due process raise its head all throughout the first quarter. We're in the second quarter of this year, and we are not seemingly taking any step towards ensuring that at every single point in time, when we take an action, we don't give room for fault.
Exactly. For me, right, I think the question that must be asked of these agencies is stop playing to the gallery, do your homework thoroughly, don't do newspaper trials. Every Nigerian knows inside them and in their conscience that something is not right with most of our politicians. So I'm being careful now. I don't want to generalize. But most people would agree that our politicians tend to play games with the treasury. I'm just using the words carefully, right? So we would support the EFCC if, for instance, the EFCC comes to court one day and the judicial correspondent assigned to that court picks up a case, and the EFCC presents all its facts, having conducted an extremely thorough investigation. They know that the thing is iron cast, and they will get a conviction on the basis of these documents that they presented. And then they go to court, and the news then filters out. What happens is the other way around now, where they pick the person up, or they throw some information into the public, or they throw some video, and then the thing becomes a media trial. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody who is not a lawyer becomes a son. So I'm saying they've got to stop this. Try these cases and try them effectively and get some convictions.
To add to that, the rules relating to matters litigated before, you're not litigating them again. What we call atrophies acquit and atrophies convict relate to matters that have the same facts. That is, what we have to watch for carefully in this is the charges that were brought in the tribunal. Would they be different from the ones they are bringing now? If they are, then that constitutional bar does not stop EFCC from relitigating them. No, it's true, of course, that the first trial before the tribunal was not properly done. I think EFCC gloried more in the media part of it. If you look at the evidence that was presented, it was often substandard. A case where you say someone has property, someone didn't declare property in London, and you didn't go to the registry in London to go and find out the details of the owner of that property, whether it was the person. You don't have a CTC. You didn't go to the registry to get a CTC of the owner, to prove the ownership, to say this is the owner, you know, but you went all the way in the press and you were blackmailing. I mean,
Hearsay.
Yes, hearsay. Our prosecuting agencies should learn to stop this. You don't win cases in the media.
Okay, so now coming back to you, Shegun, to what extent now do you think we would have anti-graft agencies that work, and this time around believe in them? Some would argue that we've not had enough of track record to show that these agencies are independent and are not lopsided or biased towards any political leaning or being used and puppets here and there. I don't want to believe there's a witch hunt here, but to what extent now do you expect EFCC fine-tunes its process of investigation, making sure that every single investigation starts and ends to meet a logical, conclusive end?
First of all, let me say that if there's a witch hunt, then it's up to you to prove you're not a witch. I have absolutely no issues with witch hunts.
I make reference to this because the president of the Senate raised this issue, saying that it's aimed at settling scores. So I wouldn't want to use that language. Let's play neutral now.
Well, it's fine. I mean, and I still say again, if he feels that there's something more than the substance on the surface of the case, it's up to him to prove it. It's not for him to then whip up sentiments and say it's a witch hunt. Just prove your innocence, end of story, right? To the question that you asked, it has to start from the head. Now, I'm going to, first of all, because the buck stops at the table of the president, take it right up to the presidency and say, the president needs to appoint competent people into the necessary offices. Now, who is responsible for prosecution of cases on behalf of the federal government? He is the lawyer here. He will tell you it's the Attorney General's office. So for me, it's got to start from there. It would appear as though there is a lot of incompetence across board, whether it's in the EFCC. In fact, the ICPC for now is still sort of anonymous. We're still waiting to see the bite. But the EFCC that we hear a lot from these days, they appear to be so incompetent. Where does that incompetence come from? They are prosecuting processes are usually faulty, and time and again you find them losing cases in court just as a result of technicalities, things that they didn't do. Like I said, he's the lawyer, he's going to expatiate on that. But I think that the Attorney General he's got to raise his hand and say, I've not done well enough. If in 4 years, because it's been 4 years now, we can no longer say it's only 2 years, give them time. It's been 4 years and the second term is about to start. If in 4 years, you really can't point to more than 2 or 3 high-profile corruption cases, a couple of governors, and I think 1 senator. And that's it. In 4 years, we know that the wheels of justice grind very slowly in Nigeria especially. But, 3 convictions in 4 years. Come on. So there needs to be a bit more efficiency to the process if it means bringing in private sector competence to support the prosecutors. Because I think there is also an issue of personnel, there's an issue of training and all of that. All of those issues, bring it all together. And let's have a mean, lean prosecuting machine pushing the anti-corruption fight for the federal government.
Steve.
No, to add to what he has said, the principal person office responsible for prosecution in Nigeria is the Attorney General. Actually, EFCC is not the final bus stop where it comes to prosecution in Nigeria. It's your federal Attorney General. So whenever any prosecution fails, it is basically his fault. He can start or stop any prosecution. He has that power. So when lawyers lose cases, it is not my place to publicly judge the Attorney General. But I do think that everything starts and stops with him. The box stops on his table. The other thing I would like to say, because I don't want to dwell too much on the Attorney General's issue. The other thing I would like to say is I think the EFCC should stop media trial. Media trial is prejudicial. It raises First of all, it's prejudicial to the accused person. Secondly, it raises expectations too much.
Some would also say that it's important that you push all of this information out so that the public has a sense of awareness of all of these, and we don't believe that we are sweeping information under the carpet.
It is also important that we do not prejudice the mind of the public against somebody that may actually be innocent. As we speak of Mr. Saraki now, it's very, very possible that he has not done anything wrong. That part of this property was bought from inheritance. His father was not a poor man after all and all that. So we always say in law, it's better for 9 guilty people to go free than for one innocent person to be convicted. So that's why it's important not to spice up the public to feel that this guy must be innocent before the trial. It's important to maintain the clear waters of neutrality.
Okay, well, now we have the next 4 years, because Segun has been hammering on the term 4 years, 4 years, 4 years. The just concluded elections has also thrown out another batch of governors-elect, and some others are also having new ones, and then second terms are coming into play. Now, to what extent do you also think we should also be doing stronger investigations, having checks and balances or measures to put in place that in areas of asset declaration we are objective and we have the true information out there, and then this builds information where we want to now say, well, this was gotten out of proceeds of crime, or you didn't declare this as at this time, when and when. We've always had issues with all of these information. To what extent now do we build all of the structures going forward?
First of all, we must remember that these constitutions that were made for us were made by the military governments. And if you look at all those provisions for asset declaration, they do not provide for public declaration. For me, there's no reason why when the president declares his asset, it is not made public, so that it can be openly challenged. We don't know what, say, the president owns, except he tells us. We don't know what the vice president, we don't know what. So I think it's much better to have public declarations of assets so that they can be challenged. One of the issues that arose in Onogan's trial during cross-examination that Onogan's lawyer raised was, how did you get to see my asset declaration? It's secret. That's a valid point. So let's make it open. Let's make it open. Why was it secret? And if it was secret, well, it was meant to be kept secret under the Official Secrets Act. So why don't we make these things open? What are we hiding? I think we should review the, there are many things you need to review in the asset declaration laws. This is one of them.
Segun, and to what extent now is your word to our governors-elect, state and then federal actors as well this time around coming into governance one more time? Some would say, yes, let's play neutral and give them the benefit of the doubt that they acquire all of these properties legally. But really, though, it also beholds on them to do the needful and prove themselves as not being guilty. Because the average, through the lenses that we see, we always say, well, the politician always has their own gimmicks.
Absolutely. So I like to say that first of all, nature tends towards disorder. There's a concept of that they call entropy. If you leave, an object still over time, it decays. So for it to improve and for it to move forward, you've got to apply some sort of energy or some sort of force to it. My point being that no politician, no government official anywhere in the world does the right thing just for the sake of it by himself because he's a nice guy, just for altruism, altruistic
So they must be coerced.
So they must be coerced by the system and by the people. So, for instance, in our group, we say ACT network. ACT. Look, democracy will never work without citizen engagement, and active one at that. So now, these governors that you speak about, and any other public official for that matter, your senator, your representative, your local government chairman, they are all required by law to declare their assets. Like you said, unfortunately, they are not required to make it public. However, we've had the good fortune of having a law called the Freedom of Information Act. I still say that Nigerians have failed woefully in testing the efficacy of that law. It's not going to happen by magic. So the first set of people that are going to try to use that act to secure information from government will meet with resistance, because it's not in their interest to reveal this information. But until we try and try and try and try again, you begin to chip at that rock until you break through it. So now all these governors and all of that, what I'm saying to Nigerians is go out there. The Freedom of Information Act is there. Make a request to the CCB for their asset declaration. Make that request. Okay. Demand it. Insist that you want to see it. If they refuse, go to court. It's our right, and we've got to start doing things. See, if we don't do this, these guys are not going to do it.
Just to note that the Freedom of Information Act is currently a subject of appeal before the Supreme Court. You see, what has been happening is that states to whom information has been requested have been refusing to give it.
Because they are claiming it's not domestic.
They are claiming that it doesn't apply to them. It just applies to... So just to note that the matter is pending before the Supreme Court, and it is yet to be decided.
And that matter was brought by private citizens in Nigeria, and that's the point. We've got to try, we've got to test this.
And I think really it's a matter that the Supreme Court should have expedited, because it's a matter of great public interest, so crucial to democracy. I don't know why.
But to what extent now do you think this would also, because if it's yet to be domesticated, do you think, to what extent now do you think we'll be able to...
No decision yet.
Yes.
The Supreme Court may well decide that it doesn't need domestication.
Exactly. But in your last words now, really, to what extent, you've already said we need active citizens' engagement, we need to also understand the law, we need anti-graft agencies to also follow due process. But to what extent really now do you think the next 4 years, we wouldn't see this culture of impunity that somewhat has come to stay continue?
Okay. It's going to continue. I don't have it to be Nostradamus to predict
now,
that.
because when the opposition is not in power, they cry foul. When those in government also move to the other side, they cry foul. So we don't even know
because they're all the same. They're all the same. It's a group of people, whether they're in this party or that. I don't want to mention their names. They're all the same. It's a group of people who have their interests at heart, and that's why we say Nigerians, for this not to continue in the next 4 years, we have got to change our behavior.
I think our watchword will just have to be accountability, candor, and transparency.
Absolutely.
We will have to act. Thank you very much for your time, Steve, as well as Shegun. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And when we come back, we'll be talking much more this time around about whether or not our states are viable, and to what extent should we also be looking at disbursements of federal allocations.